Oh god, join the ape room. That's the name of the room. It's called the ape room. Wait, are you the dude?
Yeah, that's me. This is like how I go on Discord.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, I didn't know if it was a random dude or no one. I don't know. Because
Yeah,
everyone was
no,
different.
I've done this before.
Prepare your anus.
I made this Discord so I could. I didn't actually want to do a Discord for myself, but I did it so I could pretend to not be myself and troll other Discords. I actually went onto Colossal's crazy Discord and was I wasn't banned, but I was server muted for telling racist jokes. The one that got me was uh they started catching on, so they knew who I was. And like I'm gay and I have a half black boyfriend, so I'm not racist. I have a terrible offensive sense of humor. But what he said is, "Hey, aren't you that white nationalist monkey?" And I was like, "Why would a monkey be a white nationalist?" And that's what got me. But yeah, no, this is me. This is my Discord. It's nice talking to you. I've seen you around. Not like a fan of your stuff because it's just too long for me. Like the streams, I can't handle it personally.
Yeah,
But I generally know of your
Rip anus.
character. So
gotcha. So it seemed like you were a little bit perturbed last night by some of the things I was saying to JonTron. So, do you want to go over that or?
well, I mean, there's really two things. It doesn't necessarily deal with JonTron's actual argument about white displacement because that's like an argument that I'm not really interested in. It doesn't necessarily interest me. What actually interests me are the two arguments that you made offhand. The one involving the economic the economic argument for migration, and the next one, your support for Black Lives Matter, and the specific quip that you put out there, which
I
I
miss
I found really hilarious. So those are the two that I kind of have something to say about. If you wanted to talk more generally about it, then we could. But I mean, it's just those are the ones that I have opinions on.
Sure, we can go over the first one. What are your opinions on what I said that you disagree with about the economic argument for immigration?
So I want to say, are you live right now or what's
Yeah,
up?
yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. I should
Oh,
have. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
cool. I didn't know. Did my white nationalist monkey joke get on air?
love y'all Andro
Yeah, I think
thumbs.
so. But it should be
Yes.
okay, right? Yeah, we're okay.
Yeah. All right. So, what I had the problem with is you were arguing for mass migration
I don't think
using
I
the.
was arguing for mass migration. I think I was just trying to argue against the idea that we need to like dramatically curb immigration based on the idea that we need to maintain like a white majority.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Well, you were specifically arguing for an economic migration, saying that any increase in the GDP is a net benefit to the economy, and you saying that is basically you saying that you don't understand how GDP is calculated, or you don't understand what GDP means to the average person. And what
sure.
I wanted to ask you is, whose economy do you think is better, India's or the United Kingdom's? Considering the fact that India recently kicked the United Kingdom out of the seventh largest GDP in the world. Whose economy do you think is necessarily better?
Okay. So, backing up a little bit. Firstly, growth of GDP does not concretely mean that an economy is growing for everybody. There are other ways to measure this. GDP per capita is one, but even that's not a good metric to measure it by. There are tons of other purchasing power, real nominal wages or whatever. Like, there's tons of different ways to measure these metrics, okay? I'm not arguing that GDP has grown, therefore the American economy is better for everybody. What I was arguing was that the entire American economy has grown, which I think can be demonstrated in different ways, and other economists seem to agree with that. So I'm not taking the argument that GDP growth period means economy is better for everybody, because obviously that would be asinine and stupid to say. I understand that. Secondly,
So,
the economic activities of Indonesia and the United Kingdom are going to be far different than what's going on in the United States. I do not have an in-depth knowledge of either of those countries, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you which one is doing better or why it's doing better. But I don't see how that's relevant to my discussion about immigration in the
yeah,
United
yeah.
States.
So that's the problem, is that you constantly deflect when you actually are given any kind of analogies, and it's something that I've seen often from you. And I'm going to say, John Tron is not a good debater. This
So,
is obviously not
okay,
something.
hold on. Just because I have
But
to go
when I
one at a
said,
time. Well, I got to go one at a time so you don't gishkel at me. You say that I'm
exactly.
deflecting on analogies. The reason why I'm deflecting on these analogies is because the countries that you're bringing up are not analogous for these comparisons. If you so
That's stupid. Again,
I know you. I know that you understand that, okay?
Let me
But if
explain.
you
No,
no,
let me
I
explain
have to
this.
finish my point because you're gish galloping the fuck out of me, okay? So
No, you are interrupting me.
I'm
and
not
then
interrupting
trying
you. I'm responding to your first point about not using these other countries as analogies, okay? So if you read any economic literature or you read anything that economists put out when they're speaking specifically about things, one of the really important and careful things that they have to do when they construct arguments is to choose good cities to model economic behavior after. If you're trying to do a comparison of what is the economic impact of immigration in this city, when you compare it to other cities, choosing those controls is sometimes the most important part of the study. So when I'm trying to have a discussion about the impacts of immigration in the United States, and somebody wants to sidestep that and point out Indonesia or the United Kingdom, which are countries that face vastly different problems than ours, have vastly different economies than ours, and have vastly different ways of dealing with things than ours, I don't think that that's an accurate comparison. For instance, in the United Kingdom, you have free healthcare. I'm not gish galloping. Okay, sorry. Response. Okay, so do you disagree with that assessment that these economies are vastly different than ours?
What I disagree is with your argument. So this is what you do. You deflect from my original argument to saying that the analogous is not applicable. And then you just go on this tangent saying facts, bring up facts that have nothing to do with the argument. My point was to say that, my original point was to say that measuring the growth of an economy by GDP is not an accurate way to measure economic growth.
I've already agreed with that, and I never stated that. I've agreed with that, and I've never stated that.
And again, all you're doing right now is this pointless self-flagellation in order to try.
Dude, Doug, you literally starting off by straw manning me. Nowhere in any of my
videos. I understand that. Now listen.
No. You don't understand. You're literally making an argument against something that I've never stated. Never in any of my YouTube videos or Twitter or anything have I ever said if GDP grows, it's good for everybody in the economy. I have never made that statement in my life.
All right. Well, then now we can get into the actual point. And this is
so then for the actual point.
Stop.
But I can't let you. I can't have you continue an argument where your premises are already majorly flawed. So we have to discuss the premises.
Shut up.
Do you think that the United Kingdom's economy is comparable to the United States?
Do I think that's a point that even fucking matters to the argument?
Yes,
no.
Because you're trying to draw an analogy between the countries. They need to be comparable to do that.
Yeah, but the analogy that I was drawing was the difference between GDP and GDP per capita. Now you're just going off on a tangent trying to self-flagellate yourself, proving some pseudo-intellectual point that doesn't even have anything to do with my argument or the argument at hand.
Okay, now, your initial argument was against a straw man that I hadn't stated, and now your second argument is that you should be able to compare the United States to countries that are totally different than ours.
And now you're just beating the horse because, again, that wasn't what you said. And you're just, self-flagellating yourself. You're on some moral high horse. So shut up.
We are not even talking about morality. What do you think moral high horse means?
I mean that you're trying to set yourself up on a pedestal. You're trying to gish gallop, and you're trying to argue a point that I'm not making.
You were making the point specifically
that we conceded that was a straw man.
Wait, now, okay. Are you conceding also that you can't compare the United States to the United Kingdom and Indonesia?
So we can't draw analogies to show basic economic truths?
What basic economic truths do you want to talk about?
The basic economic truth is that measuring GDP is not an accurate way of measuring growth in an economy.
You already agreed that was a straw man that I wasn't making, though.
And now you're just going off on a tangent. So stop doing that. That's what you do. It's annoying as fuck. It just proves that you're just trying to just jack yourself off to your audience. So stop doing that. Let's go point by point and make this argument.
Sure thing. Right? What's the first point you want to go over, buddy?
Well, that was the first point. Now that you've said that.
Now that your first point is a straw man, what's your next point?
Well, what I want to know, now that's a straw man, what is your economic argument for the benefit of migration?
It seems to grow the economy in a variety of ways that benefits most of the people living here.
Okay, name one.
Growth of the supply of labor decreases the cost of labor for companies. It means companies have to pay less for labor so that they can offer a product cheaper to people, increases standards of living because more people have access to cheaper products. That's one way that it helps the product market, I guess. Another way it can help the labor market is when a lot of immigrants move into an area, other workers have other complementary jobs that open that also increase, job opportunity for them as well. I mean, that's an argument from a job point of view. Overall growth of a country, the overall growth of the GDP, and the overall growth of the economy creates benefits for other people.
GDP is a part of your argument, so that wasn't a straw man.
No, I'm talking about the economy. I'm talking about the job market, and I'm talking about the cost of goods. I'm not talking about GDP. Nowhere in here did I say
just
GDP.
mentioned GDP.
No,
You
I
just
didn't
mentioned
say
that's
GDP. I
Overall
specifically
growth of the
spoke
economy.
about the job market, and I specifically spoke about the cost of goods. Okay, these
Yeah,
are two things
job
that are
market,
not
cost of
GDP.
productivity, all of these things are impact. So what you're actually saying is you're describing in detail things that basically amount to the growth of the gross domestic product. And the
No,
problem
because
is
it's possible to grow GDP without growing either of these things. You can grow GDP without having a positive or negative impact on the job market or a positive or negative impact on the cost of goods.
And how would that be?
What do you mean?
Like, how would you grow to GDP without either making goods cheaper?
I don't
or
know.
without-
Think of a way. GDP is just the collective cost of all the goods and services in a society, right? You don't necessarily have to make them. There's millions of different things that go into impacting GDP. I don't know, fucking real estate, there's a million different ways of raising price on something that could impact GDP that don't relate to these two specific things.
So, without doing this Gish Gallop thing, which you do to make yourself sound intelligent, talking about these extremely detailed vaguities, can you name one actual economic number that migrants have impacted in a positive way that shows the migration is beneficial? A number
Sure.
that we
David Carr did a very specific study on the impact of supply shock of labor when a whole bunch of people came over from Cuba into Miami and analyzed the impact of wages there. And he found that over a trend of 10 to 15 years, there weren't really any massively horrible negative impacts.
Yeah, that's actually not true, and you're being disingenuous. I know that study, and that study actually showed that the instant impact was a decrease in the price of labor and the decrease of wages across the board for low-wage workers. However, after the sudden increase from the Cuban boat lift decrease, there was a gradual amalgamation into the regular economy. So you're basically just wrong.
Okay, what is your background in economics?
I'm not gonna tell you shit, nigga.
Okay, I'm parroting opinions from Borjas, who's one of the most respected immigration
and
economists in the United States.
I have read that study, and that is what it says, and that's exactly what you said.
So I'm telling you this right now, okay? If you're
wages.
disagreeing with leading economists in the fields, I'm not smart enough
I'm
to
not
argue with you.
disagreeing with
You
it.
are
You are
though.
being
If you are
You are not
disagreeing
actually
with
read the
leading
study. And here you go, an appeal to authority. You don't know what you're talking about. You're disagreeing with leading economists. No, I am telling you, this is what the study said. The study that you didn't read, that you're just parroting.
I didn't okay, dude.
Yeah.
What
You
else
want to
do-
bring up the study?
Yeah,
tell you.
I mean, what about it?
It's the Cuban boat lift. After Cuba,
Yeah, I know about it. Yeah, I read the fucking study. I know about it, right? There is a
You read
small
exactly
depression in
what you
wages amongst non-high school graduate people for some period of time, but over 20 to 30 years, most of those seem to disappear
over
completely.
20 to 30 years. And here's the difference. That migration was instant and small and stopped. It wasn't this continuous flow of migration.
Okay, but
So
it was
there
also
was
a massive supply of workers. It was a massive supply of
a
workers.
massive
200,000
supply.
people being introduced to this economy. So a lot of people would have made the predictions that like, oh, well, the economy will collapse here. Low-wage workers will be destroyed for generations to come, blah, 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 blah. But for the most part...
Now you're just arguing against a straw man, because this is what you do. This is what people also do with, like free healthcare. Oh, Sweden isn't this wasteland. Sweden hasn't been destroyed by God. No. That's not the argument. Again, you're building up a straw man to slap it down. The argument is that migration depletes low-wage earners. That argument is true, especially when you talk about continued mass migration. So,
okay, but I never...
Even if my point, you read wrong because you don't understand what you're...
So... Even if your argument does have some truth to it, which it does, okay, massive immigration from low-skilled workers can have a detrimental on hyper-specific job markets, right? In the specific study we're talking about, we are talking about the average earnings of no high school graduate workers, okay, of a certain age group. There were net benefits for the economy that can be measured and are accounted for, right?
Okay,
the entire point... What?
Wait. Name the net benefit. Are you talking about GDP? Because we just had that argument.
How about cheaper labor for businesses?
And what does that cheaper labor mean? That also means lower wages for low-wage earners. So you're basically repackaging...
I'm sorry, do you know how economics works? What are you talking about, dude?
Yeah, do you know how economics...
Hold on. I need you to take a break for a moment. Hold on. No. I need you to take a break for a moment, okay? If you were a business and you have to pay your employee like 50 million times as much as another employee, the cost of your final product is going to be higher. Do you not acknowledge that?
Again, what you're doing here is exactly what you do. What you do is you deflect from the point. You say something that sounds intelligent. Is just repackaging.
I'm sorry. No, what I'm telling you is really
Excuse
basic,
me, let
ultra
me finish
basic
my
economic.
point. Excuse me. Let me finish my point. What you did was you said you'll get cheaper wages. You know what? You get cheaper labor. What that also means is lower wages. So
are you for or against an increase in the minimum wage? Do you think a $15 an hour minimum wage is a good idea?
No, it's a fucking stupid idea.
It's bigger wages for everybody, though, dude. Why is it a bad idea?
Well, because it's distortionary to the economy. It doesn't.
What do you mean? And artificially stemming the supply of labor isn't distortionary? Why are these two things different? You're talking about artificially increasing the cost of labor by decreasing immigration. Why is that bad?
Because one of them is the market reacting, which deals with human, psychology and the basic market forces, while the other is an arbitrary wage, which is distortionary to the market.
Okay, so if you're an employer and you have to either hire a worker at $20 an hour because you have no pool of labor to draw from and nobody wants to come work for you because there's nobody there to hire and you've got to pay $20 an hour to them versus the minimum wage goes up to $20 an hour, what the fuck is the difference of that to the businessman?
Well, I mean, the difference is where that money is going and who is enforcing it and how the
It's going to labor. What do you mean, where is the money going?
Well, is it going to Americans or is it going
to
Who
cares
foreign?
if it's who it's going to? It's going to labor.
Because
Why?
I'm an American, you douchebag.
And you're talking to me on a computer that you could afford. You probably have a cell phone that you could afford because it didn't cost $4,000 because it was manufactured in a country that can do it at much cheaper prices than we could in the United States. What does being an American have to do with artificially increasing the cost of labor?
Funny, it just is here. Just people on the left parrot these libertarian economic talking points whenever it's convenient. It really is, because it also shows how little you understand about the economy. Because here's the thing. Migration is not the same as free trade. They're just not the same. So when you were going on this tangent, we can't use Britain and India to show this economic point, but here you are using the same kind of analogy when it's beneficial to you. It shows the kind of arguments that you do. It shows the kind of disingenuous points you bring up.
You're calling my points disingenuous, and when I ask you, and then you literally say, and then you literally have the nerve to ask, you go, how does cheaper labor, what is that, how does that help a company? Do you have any idea how fucking retarded that sounds, dude? How does cheaper labor help a company, dude? Just because they have to pay a less wage, how is that helping the company at all? I don't know, dude, get a fucking job and talk to your manager. Like, what kind of a...
This is why I wanted to argue with you, because I knew...
Because you're going to sit here and be smug as fuck without having any idea what you're talking about? How does cheaper labor help a company, dude?
Because what you did was you just redefined lower wages as cheaper labor when it was beneficial to your argument.
Because that's what lower wages are, cheaper labor, by definition.
Oh, so it's cheaper labor when you want it, but it's lower wages when you don't. Also, analogies
Wait,
are good.
what do you mean? They're one and the same. Cheaper labor and lower wages usually go hand in hand. What are you talking about? If the wage is lower, the labor is cheaper. What?
Yeah, exactly. And you are only saying cheaper labor. You're not saying it's lower wages.
Okay, lower wages. I'll use that word if you want. I thought we were talking about the same thing. Let me know if I need to...
So you want Americans to have lower wages? And you think that's beneficial for the economy?
Not necessarily. It depends on
there we go! Ha ha!
And if you would look at any of these economists that analyze these markets, you would find that just because you have a decrease in the cost of labor in certain things doesn't mean that the entire labor market is impacted. There are complementary jobs or positions and management that may open up, okay? And you also have a cheaper cost of goods at the end of the day to the average American person. If you're earning a little bit less, but everything around you costs less, that doesn't necessarily mean you're getting fucked. You're giving me this hyper one-dimensional view of economics. Like, I don't understand, like, what is your point?
Well, I mean, like, you're saying that it's beneficial to the GDP, to, the average person.
I'm saying that it's beneficial to the overall economy. You can't misconstrue my argument and then say, don't interrupt me when I'm paraphrasing you.
Yeah, well, how about you be a polite person and don't interrupt me? If you'll not interrupt me, I'll stop interrupting you, okay? Can we make that sort of like a generality? Stopping a douchebag interrupting me, I'll stop interrupting you.
Yeah, go for it, buddy.
So you're saying in general terms that it's good for the average person in the economy, which I'm going to say, like, using this as a number on the paper, the numbers on the paper work really, really well. The numbers going up, the stock market is inflating, whatever. That's a benefit to this person called the economy. Who it actually hurts is low wage earners. What it actually hurts is their ability to compete in the labor field. And you can say that, there are other management positions that would open up. Well, I mean, that's true with any growing economy. I mean, that's true with our economy right now. What the mass migration does is it continuously depresses wages over a long period of time. And maybe it's good for the 1%. Maybe it's good for the middle class. Maybe it's good for people who don't have to compete for construction jobs. Because, there are people out there who don't have to compete for construction jobs. Heaven knows I fucking don't. Heaven knows you don't. But who it's actually bad for is lower wage people. And I just think it's funny how somebody who's generally on the left is completely okay with fucking over lower wage people to benefit the economy because it suddenly benefits your political ideology to import millions of people.
All right, are you done?
Yeah, that's
okay. So an intelligent person coming at this from the idea of growing the economy for everybody would take what you said, look at it, understand that parts of what you are saying are factually true. There are people that are hurt by supply shock to immigration, or by supply shock to labor markets via immigration, okay? There are low-wage workers that are hurt. Manufacturing in America has been hurt by the exporting of jobs to other countries, right? However, the intelligent person seeks to capitalize on the gains, of which you seem to not acknowledge there are any of, and then redistribute those gains to the people that are hurt to continue to grow the economy for everybody. This is what a sensible discussion on immigration policy is. It is not, we need to get rid of all of these people hurting low-wage earners, blah, 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 but it is instead, we need to find a way to redistribute the winnings from the people that benefit the most off of this type of immigration and redistribute those winnings to the people that are hurt most by it so that we can continue to enjoy lower cost of goods and a growing economy for everybody.
Yeah, but that's not how it works. You can't just do that.
How can you not just do that? What do you mean? You can't tax people in certain ways to take advantage of certain types of immigration? You can't charge people a higher fee for H-1B visas or anything? These are impossible things to do?
I mean, you can, but it's detrimental to the economy because what you're talking about is like sort of, I don't know the exact economic term, but so I'm going to use philosophical terms. There's a priori and then post priori. So I'm working in the a priori, which means before the money is made, before the exchange happens. You're working in the post priori. So the problem is that before the money exchanges, when you're dealing with market forces, you're dealing with a natural and organic growth of the economy. When you talk about post priori, which is where you are on collecting taxes and everything, tax the fucking rich people so we can give it back to the poor people who we just displaced with all the mass migration, because that makes more sense.
I can't. Can we move on to the next thing? I can't have a discussion on economics with you. You're not equipped for this discussion. Can we just move on to the next point?
So
I'm not going to argue with somebody that's going to go into like the taxes are evil. Blah. Like it's not a discussion that you're prepared to have.
Excuse me, that's a straw man. I didn't say taxes are evil. I said that they're distortionary because they work against the natural forces of the market. I mean, sure. I understand. That you don't know what you're
I understand. All taxes are bad. All social programs are bad. All of that. I understand, dude.
Straw man.
No, dude. I totally get it. No, dude. I'm a classical liberal libertarian, dude. No, I totally. Can we just move on to the next? Can we move on to the next thing, dude?
Yeah. Let's just move on because you obviously don't know what you're talking about.
I know, dude. I can't. I'm too.
So I want to say this is just a final point that we didn't bring up, just for my audience and yours that'll be watching this. The net benefit that I can find for taxes being paid by low-wage illegal migrants is $12 billion, while the net detriment in terms of roads, bridges, schools, etc., is $112 billion.
Wow. So you're not measuring any of the economic growth. You're not measuring any of the benefits to the companies that are employing low-cost labor. You're not measuring any of the. Does this include like sales tax and gas tax paid by these people? Does it like? Are you including any of this? Or are you just getting like raw numbers off of income tax paid? You realize that all income tax paid by people that make less than 10 to 15K a year is almost negligible, right? Like a lot of these people pay negative tax rates.
Yeah. So why would you want to import more people that are going to be paying negative tax rates?
Because tax rate alone is the only way that you measure an increase in the economy.
I mean, it's almost like they're going to be a burden on everybody. They're going to make lower wage earners poor, and all they're going to do is make people at the upper crust really wealthy. It's almost like you're making an argument for wealth inequality.
It's almost like I said, a sensible immigration policy finds a way to redistribute the winnings from the winningness people getting, the most advantages from this immigration deal and finding ways to retrain or rejob people that are the most severely impacted.
Yeah, exactly. Let's fuck over poor people, but let's fuck rich people more. That makes sense. Anyway, let's move on to Black Lives Matter.
Okay. I can't, dude. I'm sorry. Listen, I enjoy it. Listen, dude, I enjoy it, but you're not equipped to have these conversations, dog.
No,
you got your YouTube channel. I sincerely appreciate what you do. I hope you continue to have success, dog. But I'm gonna kill myself if I have to talk to you anymore. I'm sorry, dude. Good luck with everything. I can't. I'm sorry, guys. I can't. Not with this guy. I can't do it. This is what I feel like the Stephen Molyneux conversation